Shalom everyone, Rabbi Eric Solomon, Raleigh, North Carolina, Beth Meyer Synagogue, back with Morning Torah after a break. So I want to share a little bit about the sad, mournful holiday of Tisha B'Av, the 9th day of the Hebrew month of Av, which is coming up this Saturday night through Sunday on the Jewish calendar. And it is considered one of these, if not the saddest day on the Jewish calendar. Traditionally, it's a fast holiday, a fast day of fasting, to mourn primarily the destruction of the temples in Jerusalem, especially in 70, and then in general, many calamities that happened to the Jewish people in our history. And, there's many questions we could discuss about this, including the fact that today we do have a rebuilt Jerusalem, and so it's not the same, and why do we still commemorate? Why are we still sad? That's a whole other Devar Torah. What I want to focus on is what the rabbis say. So the rabbis interpret, and they give many stories throughout the Talmud about this, that the reason the temple was destroyed in 70 in particular was not simply because of the Roman conquest. I mean, that's true. They did come in and destroy the temple and our people. But the main reason they understood the temple was destroyed was because of sinat chinam, baseless hatred, between members of the Jewish people. That it wasn't just the external force, but it was the internal. It was what we did to each other that caused the temple's destruction, at the very least you could say politically, because we were so weak internally that we allowed Rome to conquer us. We couldn't be united. We couldn't be strong. A lot of relevance, sadly, today in our current political environment in the United States and other countries all around the world. But in the story they described, this famous story, which I won't say it all here, many of you are probably familiar with it, of Kamsa and Bar Kamsa, these two guys who have a very petty, social anger at each other, fight basically over banquet invitations, and they go back and forth. One invites Kamsa and thinks he invites Bar Kamsa, but he really doesn't. They get offended with each other. Read it. If you want to Google Kamsa Bar Kamsa story, you can review it. Many of you are familiar with it. It's kind of a silly story. But the main thing in the middle of that story, which I think is the most key moment in that story, and these guys are fighting, they're having social anger, and eventually this story supposedly brings in the Romans and gets them upset and leads to destruction of the temple. It describes kind of in mini, kind of a satirical way, sort of farcical way, why our people were so weak, of the social dynamics. It says the rabbis watched the whole thing, the fighting between these two members of the Jewish people, and they didn't protest. They did nothing. They watched a kind of mini civil war, and they kept quiet. And that's my teaching here. When we look back on this day of, sadly, 9th of Av, Tisha B'Av, yes, it's about mourning our historical tragedies. Yes, mourning the temple of Jerusalem destroyed. It's about the things we don't have, the peace we seek, not only in Israel, but throughout the world and all places, for the Jewish people and others. But it's also about a broken relationship with God, all kinds of things. But it's also about the fact that in a moment when things were difficult, when there was tension amongst our people, leaders stayed quiet. They didn't do anything. They didn't speak up. They didn't try to make peace. There's no guarantee that if the rabbis protested, they would have guaranteed it would have worked out between Kamsa and Bar Kamsa. Who knows? But they didn't even try. They just sat back and did nothing. And that is the greatest sin. When you see divisiveness or, God forbid, civil war, there are those like Abraham Lincoln who try to speak up, do something about it, try to make some kind of peaceful dynamic. There's no guarantee. But if you do nothing, there is a guarantee that nothing will happen. Even to this day, it takes courage, it takes guts to try to make peace, not just with other countries, other peoples, but within your own family, within your own tribe, within your own country, in your own city, your own neighborhood. It takes courage. So the message to Tisha B'Av, or one of them, is if you see tensions arising around people around you, if you see awkward behavior, if you see rude behavior, and if you think there's something you could do about it, or even just call it out, it's your job to do so. It's because the rabbis didn't protest, the Talmud tells us that the temple was destroyed. It's a message for us today. We see divisiveness, we see people acting inappropriately, insurrections, for example. We must speak up, or our community is at risk. Wishing everyone a meaningful Tisha B'Av, a meaningful Shabbat, and remember, use your voice. Shabbat Shalom.